What's up everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we are diving deep into a very specific hardware test that a lot of budget gamers have been asking about. We're taking a look at Marvel Rivals running on the NVIDIA GT 1030 paired with an older Intel i5-6500 processor. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Why test such an old graphics card on a brand new fast-paced hero shooter? Well, the truth is, a massive portion of the gaming community is still running budget builds or older office PCs, trying to squeeze every last drop of performance out of their hardware. So I wanted to see if this setup could actually handle the absolute chaos that Marvel Rivals brings to the screen. Let me give you a quick rundown of the test bench before we look at the numbers. The GT 1030 was released years ago as a basic display adapter and entry-level esports card. It was never truly meant for heavy gaming, but it became a legend for budget builders. Alongside it, we have the i5-6500, a quad-core CPU from the Skylake era. Back in the day, this was a solid mid-range chip, but in modern titles, especially CPU-heavy multiplayer games, 4 cores and 4 threads can really struggle to keep up with the constant data streaming. And Marvel Rivals is exactly that kind of game. It is built on Unreal Engine 5, and it is incredibly demanding. You have highly detailed character models, massive destructible environments, and absolute visual overload when ultimate abilities start flying across the map. When I booted up the game, I had my expectations set pretty low, but I still hoped for a playable 30 frames per second at the absolute minimum. Unfortunately, the reality of the situation is much worse. I started the testing at 1080p resolution using the Ultra preset. As you can probably guess, this was a complete slideshow. We were looking at single-digit frame rates, mostly hovering around 4 to 6 FPS. The menu itself felt sluggish, and getting into a match took forever. So I immediately started dropping the settings, down to high, then medium, and finally, I tested Marvel Rivals on the GT 1030 with the i5-6500 on the lowest possible settings at 1080p. And honestly, the results are incredibly disappointing. From ultra down to low settings, the performance never goes beyond 15 FPS, making the game basically unplayable. You might see a momentary spike to 17 or 18 frames when staring at a blank wall, but the second you get into a team fight, it completely tanks. The frame timing is all over the place, meaning that even when it says 15 FPS, it actually feels much lower due to the intense stuttering. Because of these terrible results, I spent hours scouring the internet, reading reviews, and digging through Reddit threads and Steam community hubs to see if others were experiencing the exact same thing. And let me tell you, the internet is not happy. Players across the board are complaining about the severe lack of optimization for low-end hardware. One review I read specifically mentioned that the game refuses to utilize older GPUs efficiently. Another user on a hardware forum pointed out that the destruction physics, which are calculated dynamically, completely crush older 4-core CPUs like our i5-6500. Many reviewers also noted that there are no current configuration file tweaks or potato mode mods that can bypass these engine limitations. Players have tried disabling shadows entirely in the game files, turning off all anti-aliasing, and even stripping out audio files to reduce CPU load. But the community consensus is clear. The game simply demands more modern architecture. But it gets worse. A massive complaint I found in the community reviews is how the game engine handles input lag when the frame rate drops. People are reporting that playing below 30 frames per second introduces a massive delay between clicking your mouse and your character actually firing their weapon. In a competitive hero shooter where split-second reactions determine whether you win or lose, having half a second of input lag is a death sentence. Furthermore, I found several threads confirming a bizarre glitch where low frame rates actually alter the physics engine, making your character's movement speed physically slower than players running at 60 frames per second or higher. You're literally moving through molasses while the enemy team dances around you. So, is there any way to actually salvage this setup? Well, you can lower the resolution drastically to squeeze out a bit more playability. I went into the settings and dropped the internal render resolution down to 50% and even tried forcing the game to run at 720p. Did it help? Technically, yes. The frame rate crawled its way up into the low 20s, occasionally touching 25 frames per second in quieter areas of the map. But honestly, the experience isn't very enjoyable. When you drop the resolution that low, especially with modern upscaling technologies trying to fill in the gaps, the image becomes incredibly blurry. It looks like someone smeared Vaseline all over your monitor. You cannot distinguish enemy character models from the background, and trying to aim at targets from a distance is completely impossible. You're essentially trading visual clarity for a few extra frames, but the game remains fundamentally unplayable. So, it's a shame because the core gameplay loop of Marvel Rivals is incredibly fun, but this test clearly shows that the era of the GT 1030 is truly coming to an end. It just doesn't have the video memory or the raw computational horsepower to handle Unreal Engine 5 titles, even on the absolute lowest settings. If you're running a similar system, my honest advice, based on this benchmark and the overwhelming consensus from online reviews, is to save your money for a dedicated GPU upgrade before trying to jump into this game. What do you think about these results? Are you surprised that the GT 1030 finally met its match, or did you expect this kind of performance? Let me know if you've tried running the game on older hardware and what your experience was like. Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more gaming benchmarks and tests just like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.